Chapter 8, Section 3, the fall of Rome. So, if you remember, after where we left off in Chapter 8, Section 1, who was the last good emperor? Last of the good emperors, right? Marcus Aurelius. Very good. Marcus Aurelius died, and I told you in Chapter 8, Section 1, that was the end of the Pax Romana. And then in Section 2, we talked about daily life in Rome. Now, after Marcus Aurelius dies, his son Commodus, he becomes emperor. Commodus was not as good as his father at ruling the Roman Empire. He was very cruel. He wasted a lot of money, so he collected tax dollars, and he just wasted the money. He spent a lot of money on gladiatorial games. Commodus loved these gladiator games. He loved these bloody sports, these bloody contests that they had in the Roman Empire. And he loved it so much that he decided to spend much of his time fighting as a gladiator. So he had an emperor going out into the Colosseum fighting as a gladiator. Commodus, he would have trainers. He would set up the gladiatorial battles so that he would win every time. So he would do things, he would manipulate the gladiatorial game so that he would win. Joe?
If someone would beat him, would they get arrested?
He wouldn't be, if you're going to beat him, that means you were going to kill him. And they're already convicted criminals. He set him up so it wouldn't happen. For 12 years, he was emperor. For 12 years, not all 12 years, but for a majority of those years as emperor, he would basically have total say in how the games would play out. Eventually, a lot of people kind of got tired of what he was doing, and one of his bodyguards killed him, but it wasn't just his bodyguard, it was actually his athletic trainer, who was a Praetorian guard, that killed him. One of his Praetorian guards were his athletic trainers. And they strangled him. Because they just couldn't really take how cruel he was, how he wasted money, how he manipulated these games. And they were just kind of tired of his rule. Brian?
But if he was like a gladiator, couldn't he just beat them?
He wasn't the greatest gladiator because he manipulated the game so that he would win. He cheated, yeah. Murph?
So, the person who was fighting the emperor, they knew they were going to die that day?
Oh, they would try to win, but yeah. He would do little things like probably, another gladiator that he's fighting, he probably would, like maybe cut open their side so they bleed out, or little things like that to make sure that other gladiators not at full strength. All right. After Commodus, there's a group of emperors that come into power. All right. The first one after Commodus, his last name was Severus, and they become the emperors that followed him were known as the Severans. All right. So it was a dynasty of emperors. All right. The Severans dynasty. All right. And they were not the greatest rulers either. The Severans spent much of their time putting down revolts, protecting Rome's borders, and they did not really help build the economy. They were all military generals, and of these emperors, most of these Severans were killed by the Praetorian Guard. Only one died of natural causes, one of these emperors. They did stay in power because they paid the army well. But they ignored growing problems of crime and poverty, and that's why they're not successful. During their rule, a lot of crime takes place, a lot of poverty. You have a lot of corruption that starts to develop again, similar to what happened at the end of the Roman Republic. Jack?
Why didn't any of the Severans notice that the Praetorian Guard was killing the leader?
All right, we're going to get into the fall of Rome, how the Roman Empire collapsed. I know if you can't read it, All right, fall of Rome. That's what it says there. All right, fall of Rome. Now, some other teachers, if you've learned about the Roman Empire already, may give you different causes to the fall of the Roman Empire. The categories that you need to know on how the Roman Empire collapsed. Every teacher, every historian will probably give you similar causes. They may just kind of word it differently. You have political. All right, I would definitely star this. All right, you may see this on a test, or maybe on a trimester. You never know. All right. For those of you who are picking up on what I am saying, all right, causes to the fall of the Roman Empire. You need to know. Will?
My dad said that one of the main reasons that the Roman Empire collapsed was because a lot of them were corrupt.
That's political.
Yeah, so that's
Yep, exactly. We're going to talk about that. I pretty much put a title on a lot of the causes. You have political, you have economic, social, and then foreign enemies. On the borders of Rome, there's a lot of Germanic tribes that start to invade the Roman Empire and caused a lot of problems. We'll talk about that. John?
A bunch of the generals from those people were teachers.
Yep. Yep. Armand?
I have two questions.
Yes.
Did the Senate and the Praetors still exist now? I mean, like before the Romans were involved?
All right, the first cause of the Roman Empire we're going to talk about is political problems. You can, again, I know the white's tough to see. It's just this app. I got to find another app where I can do this for the slides transition over better. All right, political problems. If you remember going back to Augustus, what was one thing he forgot to do? Maybe he didn't forget to do, but just didn't do before he died in AD 14. Alicia?
He didn't say how the next emperor would be chosen.
Very good. He didn't say how the next emperor would be chosen. There was no written rule as to who would inherit the throne, who becomes the imperator. There was no written rule. People just assumed that it would be, a son or adopted son, because that's how other civilizations did it. No one really knew. All right, no one knew. And that caused a lot of problems because, let's say you have two sons, or a son, and then an emperor has a stepson, or a stepson and a grandson. It creates problems within the family. And it created a lot of political problems. Also, another political problem, it's not mentioned here, but because there's no written rule as to who would become throne for the next 15 years, all right, the Severans stopped ruling in AD 235, and after that, for the next 50 years, you had about 22 different Roman emperors in a 50-year time span. That's a lot of emperors within 50 years. They were very poor leaders, and military leaders start fighting for power, right? And they used their legions against one another. Basically, civil wars started to develop. All right, political problems. Anthony?
How come the legions are still following the military?
Because the military generals were paying their soldiers to keep their loyalty. Armand?
How many emperors were there in 50 years?
Within 50 years, about 22. And many of those 22 were eventually maybe murdered by their army that felt they were not getting paid enough, or murdered by their Praetorian Guard. Political problems are problems within the government, problems with leadership. Some would say there are political problems in our society today. Right? How many of you watched a debate last night? Show of hands. All right, some of you did. All right. It got to a point in that debate where it was just each candidate, right, just attacking one another. They're not even talking about the problems our country's facing. They're just attacking each other, right? Talking about polls the entire time. They're not talking about issues and policies. And, that's something that was going on in the Roman Empire. You have candidates, or I shouldn't say candidates, emperors, who are just thinking about themselves and not necessarily the issues going on within the Roman Empire. All right? social problems. Another cause of the fall of the Roman Empire. You definitely want to make sure you're going through these, getting them down carefully, highlighting. You may get a question that asks you about the causes of the fall of the Roman Empire. You never know. You never know. Yep, wink, wink, hint, hint. So because there was poor political leadership within the Roman Empire, you start to see many Romans lose faith in basically their leaders. All right, many Romans lose faith. All right, the old ideals of courage, all right, honesty. Honesty is something that we as citizens talk about. Are our leaders really honest? Is Trump really honest? Is Marco Rubio really honest? Is Hillary Clinton really honest? No. All right. Are all these individuals really honest? All right. These are some things we ask ourselves, and that's what the Romans were asking themselves about their emperors. And also, they're also losing a sense of duty or citizenship responsibility. They feel as if I'm not going to serve in the military for that individual because he may lie to me. All right, so the old ideals of courage, honesty, and duty, which existed during the Pax Romana, during the time of Augustus, during the early Roman Republic, start to fade away at this time. All right, that is a social problem. Armand?
Was that supposed to say if you're Romans?
Yes, you can put an S next to Romans. All right, thank you, Armand, for fixing that. All right, make mistakes. Next, another social problem was you had wealthy citizens because their power was being diminished in the Senate. And as praetors and tribunes, they kind of were like, all right, we're not going to pay taxes anymore. All right, they stopped paying taxes, which means less money for the government, all right, for these emperors. That's going to cause an economic problem, which we'll talk about on the next slide. All right, so a way of now citizens not fulfilling their duties and paying their taxes. The patricians. Few people are attending schools, which means not everyone knows how to write, read, speak in public, communicate ideas, think critically, understand math, understand science, understand religion, and that starts a problem. That's a major problem within the Roman Empire as well. Catherine?
Isn't it bad if there's more slaves because then it's easier for them to revolt and like rebel and stuff?
Exactly. That's the next thing I was going to get to. The enslaved population grows. In the 100s BC, what percentage of people in Italy were enslaved? Gassan? 40%. All right, that number is going to even grow. All right, it's going to even grow towards the end of the Roman Empire. And then also a plague hits the Roman Empire. Anyone know what a plague is? What is a plague? You can actually see it. Alex?
It's like a disease that spreads.
Very good. A disease that spreads widely, and it took its toll. 1 out of 10 people, you may want to know this, out of 10 people were killed by this plague. It wasn't the Black Plague. All right. I would have to look up what the exact plague was, but I do know in the 300s, the AD 300s, there was a disease that took place and decreased the population of Rome. Katie?
Since the wealthy citizens stopped paying taxes, did the trade slow down?
Yes. We're going to get into that with the economy. All right? We are going to move on. We're going to move on to the next cause to the fall of the Roman Republic, economic problems. All right, I'm going to take time to kind of explain this because it could be confusion. Rome, as a result of people not paying their taxes, they start to suffer from inflation. And here's what inflation is. Inflation is the rapidly increasing of prices. And the reason why prices go up, right? Like a balloon inflate. When a balloon inflates, what does the balloon do?
Bigger.
Science. Monica?
It grows bigger.
Grows bigger. It expands, right? When inflation occurs in the economy, what that means is that prices are going up. So let's say we have this statue here of St. Joseph. when inflation occurs within an economy, let's say the statue is worth $10. When inflation occurs, it's going to be worth $20. Let's just say, for example. All right, and here we go. Let's say I have. All right, I'm going to use Brian here. Let's say I give Brian $5. All right, give Brian $5. In inflation, what happens is the government doesn't have enough money, to produce and make this $5 becomes worth $1 in inflation, because there's less gold or less value backing this $5 because they make so many $5 bills that they're not worth the same. So this $5 basically becomes $1. So this $5 bill is only worth $1.
Aw,
Now, how would you feel about that?
I feel upset because now it's not $5.
But this is what you get paid. I give you $5.
It's a lie.
But it's a lie, right? So that's a problem with the soldiers and political officials. All right, they're getting paid those $5, or let's say they're using coins back then. They're getting them, let's say, 5 coins, but 5 coins are only worth the value of 1 coin because they're putting less gold in coins, which decrease the value of the coin. So if you're decreasing the value of money, then the prices of goods are going to go up. That is an economic problem. Right, so now, instead of using 4 $5 bills or 2 $5 bills to purchase the St. Joseph statue, Brian has to now get 10 or 20 $5 bills to purchase this statue. That's inflation. Right? Yes, it did at once occur in this economy. All right, in the Great Depression, just before the Great Depression, it actually occurred all over the world. And in the Roman Empire started to occur. They didn't have paper money, they had coins, which started to lose value because they started to not put as much gold into the coins. And this led to people beginning to barter. People begin to barter, and what barter is basically good for good. So some of you may barter at lunch. Oh, I'll give you 1 French fry for a chip, or a pack of M&Ms for 2 Reese's peanut butter cups. Right? That's a barter. Or a yellow highlighter for an orange highlighter. That's a barter. Or I'll give you my Madden 2009 for your MLB 2009 game. That's a barter. Some of you may barter today. All right? You're not using money in this system, but this is what people start to do. This is what merchants start to do in the Roman Empire. They start to barter or exchange goods. All right, next cause. Foreign enemies were invading the Roman Empire. That's a major, major cause, to the collapse of the Roman Empire. And on the outskirts of Rome, if you remember going back to that map I showed you, I think back in section 1 of how large the Roman Empire grew. It extended all the way into the Middle East, controlled pretty much all of Europe, parts of Great Britain. And there were many different Germanic groups that existed on the borders of Rome. All right, many different Germanic groups. And these Germanic groups are going to start to search for warmer climate. They're going to go south. They're going to look for better grazing land. So they move south. Bless you. They move towards areas within the Roman Empire. And they started attacking settlements, attacking cities within the Roman Empire. All right, one Germanic tribe that started to conquer, or I should say, raid Roman cities and towns and villages were the Visigoths. And the Visigoths were from an area where the Huns were from, all the way in kind of Central Asia. And they were pushed west by the Huns. Attila the Hun, we didn't cover him, but he started to push this Germanic tribe, the Visigoths, to a little bit north of the Balkan Peninsula. The Visigoths settled. And they start to live within the Roman Empire for protection. All right, the Roman Empire says, yeah, you can stay here within our borders. Just make sure you pay taxes, follow the laws of the emperor, and you can stay here for protection from the Huns. They're running from the Huns. The Visigoths, they felt as if they were not being treated fairly, all right, when they were receiving protection under Rome. Right? They felt as if they're not being treated fairly. And what happens is what the Romans were doing is they basically were forcing Visigoths to pay more for certain goods, all right, to pay more for food. They were taxing them more, and the Visigoths decided to rebel against the Roman Empire. All right, and they defeat several Roman legions at the Battle of Adrianople. All right, in 378, AD 378, they defeated several Roman legions at the Battle of Adrianople. All right, many Romans also tried to kidnap Visigoths and use them as slaves. All right, so these are some reasons why the Visigoths rebelled. I don't know how that's funny, but the Romans are going to eventually surrender land to the Visigoths, all right, because they just don't have, all right, the strength in their military, don't have the strength in their government to push them out. John?
Didn't the Huns eventually get to Rome and try to attack it?
Yes, we just haven't gotten up to that. We're going to talk about, they attacked the eastern part of the Roman Empire. The Visigoths seeked protection from the Huns before the Huns arrived, and then trouble broke out between the Visigoths and Romans, mainly because the Visigoths were basically being treated unfairly, and they decided to rebel. They defeated several Roman legions at the Battle of Adrianople in 378 AD, or AD 378. And after that defeat, the Romans surrendered land. They gave land to the Visigoths. All right. We're going to talk about some other foreign enemies that attacked the Roman Empire. All right, there's about 2 slides. Then we're going to talk about, on Monday, 2 other emperors that tried to save the Roman Empire. All right, and then you'll be ready for the test on Tuesday. All right?